Welcome back to Jerk Block Talk. I'm Jason Fernandez. I'm here with Amy Davis. We're here at CrossFit Stability. This is take two. So Amy and I literally just shot this video and I realized I didn't turn the damn microphone on. So it's just a video of two people, just talking with absolutely no audio. Real quick, introduce Amy. Amy is one of the coaches here at CrossFit Stability. So tell everybody a little bit about kind of what you do here.
So I started here. I'm going to be working with the kids program. I'm doing a gymnastics clinic 2 times a week. And I'm going to be coaching obviously the regular classes as well too. Kind of like gymnastics, it's my thing. I was never a gymnast, so I just try to be one now at 40.
I mean, you can get fitter as you get older, apparently.
Right?
So.
And the kids, of course, the kids are my thing. I like the kids. I have kids of my own, so that's just kind of what drew me to that.
Cool. So I wanted to have Amy on the show today, and I just wanted to take a field trip and get out of my own gym because that's always nice. But I want to have Amy on the show today because Amy and I just recently did some work together at an event that we host down at the beach. Are You Fit? It's down at the beach, and Amy runs the kid portion of that for us, and she did a bang-up job. So we were doing a debrief last week, like that, maybe a week ago, and we were talking about some scenarios, and I thought it was important to kind of recapture that because this is kind of a discussion I think usually when somebody tells you that they got hurt in CrossFit or they had a bad experience, if you kind of like rewind back to how that played out, this is usually what happens, meaning like somebody did not make the correct decision, which is Amy did make the correct decision. So I want you to kind of talk about a little bit about the weekend and how that kind of played out and what you did.
So I reached out to Ellen. She was looking for somebody to run the kids portion of Are You Fit? And I was all in. So
because you have 3 kids?
I have 3 kids. Yep. My oldest daughter's a gymnast. My son plays football, and my youngest one, she dabbles with CrossFit. She's still trying to figure some stuff out. She actually competed at Are You Fit? So I wrote 5 workouts with the ability to be able to move around as needed. So nailed it down to the 3 we wanted to do, played around with it in the gym, had some other coaches at some other gyms who have kids programs play around with it too. We were fortunate, we had 40 kids sign up, and just the way it kind of worked out, we were able to do the heats by age, just worked out perfect for us.
Which is good because you don't have a huge
spread, right, in every heat, so you got to watch. So we started with 8-year-olds, and the last heat of every event was the teenagers, so it was kind of cool to watch 8 to 14 compete. So the second WOD of the day was supposed to be a 10-minute AMRAP. Some deadlifts, some clean and jerks, and some shuttle running. So 3, 2, 1, go. Here go the little 8-year-olds, super cute bunch. Like 52, 58 seconds into a 10-minute workout, I look down, the kids are like in round 3, it's sunny.
So we're looking at 30 rounds in 10 minutes.
It's super hot outside, these kids are just owning it, and I was like, oh my God, they're gonna die. I don't know what to do. So my girlfriend Sarah, who was helping me out over the weekend, I walk over to her and I was like, I don't know what to do, they're gonna die. And she looked at the stopwatch, she looked at me and she's like, yep, they are, but I trust you. And I was like, oh my God. So kind of kept walking around, talking on the mic, trying to keep it together as I was dying inside. And then I finally looked down, stopwatch said 5 minutes, and I said, you know what? Hey parents, everybody, let's put our hands together. These kids only have 2 minutes left, 2 minutes left.
She just chopped 3 minutes off of it.
So I chopped 3 minutes off of the workout, just hoped that nobody would really say anything, nobody would really notice, and to my knowledge, nobody did.
And it wouldn't have mattered if they did. That's the right decision based on what you saw. You wrote the workouts, you tested them before. Nobody's going to know better than you whether that it's appropriate or not. So it wouldn't matter if they did.
Yeah. So you have all the parents watching. The last thing, again, my daughter competed. I have children, the last thing you want is the parents to just start to see this sort of fizzling, their kids can't take it and that sort of thing. So I wanted that, obviously a 10-minute AMRAP for us, right, for adults is we consider that kind of short, right? So you're supposed to be able to, kind of go. That's the stimulus I was looking for with the kids. And, when we're in, round 3 at 52 seconds, I thought,
this is moving a little faster than I had planned in my head.
So, oh my God. I'm going to plug the CrossFit Kids for a moment. I was fortunate. I got to go to that, but I went to it very shortly before Are You Fit? They talked a lot about end it before it's done. Kids are just going to go, like whatever coach says. So if coach says 10 minutes, by God, I'm going to kill myself to go 10 minutes.
Which is not different than new athletes that come in the gym. So you can put both the kids and the new people that are not experienced, you can throw them in the same bucket because they're both just going to do what you tell them to do.
So I've been fortunate I've been coaching for about a year, and I've had some wonderful people mentor me through this process. So between things that I've learned from those people, nuggets that they've put in my head, things that they were passionate about that were like a no-go, on top of the things that sort of resonated with me through the kids program, sort of just in that moment, I was like, I have to make a decision. I need to make it. I need to cut this. And it took me, 4 minutes, I guess, to figure out how I knew I was going to cut it. I just didn't know. And I like to talk. Here I am talking to you, right?
Yeah.
I like to talk. I was on the mic, I was talking, and it just
happened.
Just happened. And the last thing I wanted was any kid to get hurt, or it was hot. It was beautiful on Sunday, nicer than Saturday.
Yeah.
And so we're starting to get into, late morning, by the time we had gotten into, and it was just one of those things, I had to keep the kids safe.
Yeah. And I think that is the scenario that I kind of alluded to earlier. And Amy, so were you happy with the decision?
I was. It was great.
Did the workout pan out the way that you had envisioned it when you originally wrote it?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the two things that I would
stop. I didn't want anybody to stop.
Exactly.
Like,
so they keep moving, and then you ended it before it was done. And so this is the important piece, because I think not enough people make this decision on the fly for whatever reasons, whether you're not confident, maybe you're not paying attention, which is terrible, but not enough people are watching the class, realizing that's kind of what is unfolding in front of your eyes is not what was intended, and then the coach just decides to just let it ride, right? And then I have somebody who's like literally doing no work at all, maybe gets an injury, and then we have to talk about the psychological piece of this, which is like everybody else had 10 rounds and they had 2. Right. So now I have to deal with that.
I suck at CrossFit.
Or I suck, or this isn't for me, or whatever like that. And that's when that's when you hear those stories. You can usually track it back to something like that, where the coach doesn't make an appropriate decision in that instant, where they say, hey, let's shorten this up. Like, let's take some weight off the bar. Let's chop a couple rounds off of this thing. And it begs the question is, when you've been doing this long enough, so Amy's been coaching for about a year, but you've been CrossFitting for 5. Yeah, so she's no stranger to CrossFit. And even 5 years ago was kind of when CrossFit was maybe just becoming a sport, really, mainstream. And if you've been around long enough, you know that occasionally you're going to be wrong. Like when you're a new coach, you'll be wrong as far as like scaling options a little bit more frequently.
You don't know how to scale something.
Yeah, you don't know how to scale something. You really just don't know the athlete that well. There's a lot of different scenarios that play into that. But even if you've been coaching for a little bit longer, like I've been coaching 7-ish years or so, owned an affiliate for 5, like there's days when I'm wrong. Like I was wrong last week. I was telling Amy earlier, we had a guy come in, he was a new athlete. We were doing Annie, which for most CrossFitters who've been around for a while is a very...
We're like, oh, this is an easy...
Yeah, this is a warm-up. We're going to warm up with Annie.
Or you might have a little anxiety because you want a PR, but you don't look at it as a CrossFitter as something that's hard.
Yeah, but because by and large, it's a 7 to 5 minute workout for most people. So you're like, oh, this is easy. So I had a new athlete that came in, and so I knew he was going to struggle a little bit, and we were just going to do regular sit-ups and singles because he didn't have double unders yet. So I just chopped the round of 50 off. It's like, we're just going to go 40, 30, 20, 10. And about like 2.5 minutes into the workout, like he's still knocking out 40 sit-ups, and I'm like, this is not going to go well. Like he's struggling to finish the first set that we started with.
Right.
So that was one of those instances where like we fall victim to a little bit of this thing where like when we've been doing CrossFit for 5 years or 8 years or even 2 years, we assume that kind of everybody else can do what we consider very, very simple tasks.
Yeah,
like an
you
Annie.
can't do a sit-up?
Like you can't do 50 sit-ups. Like that's you know,
so
and
easy.
yeah, and the answer is like, no, there are a lot of people that cannot do 50 sit-ups. And so what happens in that scenario when you initially set out to do what you set out to do, you realize that you're wrong? Like, because it's going to happen. Like, it's not an if, guys, it's going to happen. Especially if you're a newer coach. We would love to always get all the scaling options right out of the gate, but that's just not how it plans out. So what do you do when you're wrong? And I would argue that it's really very simple. You just change it. And you change it right there on the fly. There's nothing wrong with that, guys. If you have set out and given somebody something that's too much, too heavy, too much volume, too complicated of a movement, change it. Right then and there. There's a lot of good things that are going to happen there. And we were talking about this earlier as well in the first take of this video, is that there's a couple things that are going to happen. So I would argue that if you've never made a scaling change in the midst of a workout, you're not paying attention. Like you can't convince me that if you've coached 50 classes that you got all of them 100% in those 50 classes. So 50 classes times, I don't know, we'll call it 10 and athletes per class. It's 500 opportunities to get it wrong. Like at least one of those. And if you've never done this, you're not paying attention. Like, and you know when this is happening. So let's say in that scenario where like most of us know that if we're gonna do Annie, we'll go back to that scenario. Like I should be done with the first set of 50, both sit-ups and double unders, kind of at about the 90-second mark for most people that have both of those skill sets. So if you have somebody that's still working on just the sit-ups 2.5 minutes later, it's not the same workout anymore. So you should change it right then and there. So what I did for that athlete, I just cut off the 30. So he was going to finish 40, and I said, when you finish that, we're going to do 20 and 10. And I think his time was like 6 or 7 minutes, which is about on par with what everybody else had. And I think it's important because, so Amy has had some leadership positions, like she's retired from the Navy, and so she's no stranger to like being in charge and having people work for her. And the important part is that like when you are paying attention and you make that decision that's in the best interest of the athlete or your employee or whoever, like you're gonna get some equity and some trust from those people, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about a story in take one that my husband has ruptured discs, a bad shoulder, he had shoulder surgery. So I finally convinced him one day, come on honey, just come in and do the workout, it's not that bad, you'll be fine. And it was a hero WOD, so heavy deadlifts, 30-minute workout, burpees, box jumps, oh my type thing. And we had set a scale for him that we thought was going to be fine. And we were, I forget how long we were into the workout, let's say 10 minutes. Let's say we were a third of the way into the workout. And the coach came over and she kind of looked at him and she's like, you know, Dave, we're just going to take a little bit more weight away from here. And he had shared with me on the way home, he said, I was so glad she came over. And he's like, because it was heavy and I was looking around and it was hard. And he's like,
what would he have done had she not done it?
And he said, he's like, I was going to stick with it because I thought it was fine. So grown man.
Yeah, grown man who is clearly made it this far in life, right? Regardless, responsible, has a job, right? All these things, just an adult was taking the advice of the coach that like what was given to him was appropriate. Had that coach not had the wherewithal to change that, this athlete would have just kept going, just out of pure ignorance, and then that would have been the coach's fault. But the coach there made the right decision.
Yeah.
And then he appreciated it. Did he not?
He's like, I was glad she was paying attention because I was dying.
Yeah.
And so we kind of laughed, and I think I even said to him, well, how come you didn't take the weight off? He's like, because you're already way better than I am, so then we
my wife's better than me too. It's okay. I've just come to grips with it.
We kind of, laughed and joked about it, but just to echo your point with people are just going to do what they're going to do. I fortunately with kids, fortunately and unfortunately, I guess it depends how you look at it, you have no choice but to make decisions for them. And then of course when you have parents, onlookers, that kind of thing, you're.
And that's like worst case scenario. So like this is like an event. This is in the comfort of your gym. Like Amy was running an event where there's spectators, there's parents, there's kids, and she made the decision. And I think that is the important piece, is like just don't continue down the path that you have come to the conclusion is the wrong path. for that athlete, for that instance, for that day, for that workout. It's okay to change it. And what I'll tell you is that the more and more you do this, you'll have to do that less and less often, but you will still do it. It'll still happen. Like you'll still just be like, shit, he's not going to make the time cap, or
that's not what I envisioned, or crap, I thought I got that right, and I didn't.
And I think if you're a newer coach, or you're just not confident enough in your ability to scale correctly, or you just don't know, like, you'll know once the clock starts, right? Like, so there's a couple things you can do. You can look at all the times that are posted prior to that class if you're not teaching the first class of the day. You can ask somebody else before the class, like, how long did it take you? Like, what weight did you use? And I think that you can have that with you, and if you somebody that struggles with making that decision on the fly, like, you can take a lot of confidence in this. Is like, when you err on the side of safety, nobody's going to have any beef with that, like, ever.
Yeah. I agree with that. As soon as you start to, so because I have a military background, you know, I don't care what you do, but I'll just use the military for it because that's what I know and that's what I did. You know, as soon as you start to say the word safety and well-being and those types of words start to get thrown around, people are automatically heightened. And as a new coach, you know, there are still sometimes I come in and you look at the board and you're like, oh no, or you walk up to somebody and you're like, man, I know that person can't do that, but maybe you don't have confidence in yourself to make the decision. And you know, from a new coach, what I would say is just own it. I've been fortunate in the last year to be mentored by some phenomenal coaches, and that was always the thing that they told me I did, I guess, pretty well, is I was able to kind of just sort of own that, you know, the decision making, even if inside you are just dying. Just own it, because at the end of the class, when you scale them or take the weight away or chop off around like you had to do, and the other thing that was, you know, kind of pounded in my head is circle back to the athlete and explain to them, hey, look, I did this, and you know, you're great, or you know, it's not because you couldn't do it, you just couldn't do it for this amount of time, or you know, I saw some, you know, we talk about safety, rounding, this and that. We all like to poke social media videos when people look crappy, right? So you say to the person, you know, you're moving in a manner that I didn't want you to get hurt. So safety and hurt, and you talk about injury, and people really, I think, just turn around and go, yup, and all of a sudden you just got some credibility that you didn't have before.
And so the education piece there, and what Jamie's talking about, is circling back with that athlete to tell them the why. The why is important. People want to know why.
Yeah,
they want to know the why that you did that. And that education piece, when you have, you know, the ability to kind of look past just the fact that you're training people and you look towards their safety and their development as an athlete and as a person, now you're venturing past being a trainer and being a coach. Now you're coaching this person on a way deeper level than just through the air squat or things of that nature. You know, so this is one of those things that, like, you really start to get into that development as the person as a whole, because you simply, you know, you simply just gave a fuck about the person. You care about their well-being, and you told them that. You said, hey, you know, Bob, I didn't think that 185 was appropriate because your back was rounded, and I would like you to be able to walk tomorrow. You know, like, nobody's gonna get mad at you for that. Like, and if they do, it'll be in the spur of the moment. It'll be in the middle of the workout. They really just wanted to hit that 185 bar, and you're just like, no, dude, it's not happening. We're stripping it off, and I want you to keep moving and just go a little faster. You know, so I think it's important that, you know, that you understand that, like, you're in charge of their safety, because most of the time athletes, like kids, will make the wrong decision when the competitive juices start flowing. They'll just be like, well, I can do it, when it may not be in their best interest. And the other thing is, as a coach, and this is like a cultural thing within your gym, is, you know, like, you should be celebrating the scaling more than a little bit than the adding more weight or doing more reps. Like, I'm a big fan of, like, I love it when I see athletes, or especially newer athletes, they start to make those decisions on their own and be like, hey, I'm actually gonna go a little bit lighter, and I just look at them and say, that is a fantastic decision. I agree with you wholeheartedly. And what I've seen in our gym is that we actually see kind of the whole scaling piece going in the other direction, where a lot of gyms is like, we're gonna put more weight on. Like, we have people almost to the point where like talking each other out of putting more weight. So where I'm actually telling them to like put more weight on the bar, where they're, so they're talking to, Amy's talking to Sarah, whoever, she's like, what'd you use? And she's like, well, I use 75. And you're like, well, then I'm going to use 65 because I know she's stronger than me for whatever, So we have people that are totally okay with scaling, as they should be, because realistically, depending on how you program, like 10% of the people should be able to do the workout as written that day.
Yeah.
And Amy's been doing CrossFit, and she's a really good athlete. But how often do you scale workouts?
More often than I would like to, probably.
Yeah. And that is the precedent that you set. So if you're very, very confident in your ability to scale, you're very, very, you applaud the scaling and you don't look down upon it, and then you as yourself set the example by scaling regularly, scaling is not going to be a thing that doesn't happen within your gym. It's going to be a thing that happens way more often. People are going to get fitter, guys. Like, they're not going to not get fitter because they scaled. Like, that's just not how it works. So celebrating is super, super important, and because that's what gets people to understand that, like, it's okay. It's not about the RX. It's just not.
Yeah, celebrating good movement, perfect movement, those types of things, and then once they're moving magically, then they put the weight on, and the weight floats up like it's supposed to, and you're like, oh, and there's no regression. So I agree. I mean, I was the victim of some bad habits early on, because what do you want to do, right?
As we all are.
Everybody wants to put all the weight in the gym, and I had to, over the last year, I had to, come back a little bit, because I just knew I had to move better.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, they talk about that in the different search you go to about, the kids specifically talk about perfect movement, perfect movement, perfect movement. So
yeah, and I think it's important, especially when we're talking about youth, it's very important, because like safety is paramount there. They're still developing as people. But again, it goes across both spectrums. Like, what is applicable to children is still applicable to adults. That new person that comes in doesn't know any better. Like, whatever you tell that person, like, that's gospel. Like, because you are the professional. Like, whatever you tell them is, like, if somebody walks in and you're like 185 pounds is fine, they're like, oh, cool, I guess 185 is good. Like, they literally don't know. And if you care enough, if you're paying attention, if you have the wherewithal to understand that what you've prescribed is not panning out the way that it should based on whatever the intended stimulus of that workout is, and you change it, they now trust you.
Yep.
Because you're paying attention. So I thought this was a really good discussion that Amy and I had the other day, and then we had 20 minutes ago just again. But the point is like, what happens, or what do you do when you're wrong? Because it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen a little bit more frequently than you think it's going to happen, especially if you're a little bit newer and scaling and kind of understanding like time domains and rep schemes and all that stuff. You're not real in tune with it yet. It's going to happen. So when it does happen, just change it. Like, if it's not appropriate, then change it. Like, it's not the end of the world.
Change it, own it, and explain it. And then everybody's happy.
I think you just made a little check.
Yep.
Change it, own it, explain it. Like, there you go,
and
right? Little knowledge bomb for everybody. And I think everybody's happy at that point. They're going to get fit. It's going to have been appropriate. They're probably going to have moved safely at that point. And then you're only going to improve the culture in your gym, guys. So, when that does happen, change it, own it, explain it. There you go. I like it. That was awesome. All right, guys. If you have any questions about this kind of stuff, please put them in the comments. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks on take 2. Boom. All right.